Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic is a very divisive game, and I found it funny watching in real time as people posted their thoughts online about how it was the best FNAF game and how it was straight up awful, and then both kinds of people felt confusion that the other group could possibly exist. But that's just opinions for you. But this video, for once, isn't a video about the FNAF community. This is about what the game tells us. What happens? What is the story? What are the themes? Before we start talking about the game, we need to talk about the books, which are not canon. Hilariously not canon. A series called Tales from the Pizzaplex was published from 2022 to 2023, and introduced the world to the characters of the Mimic, Fiona, and Edwin Murray, as well as their son, David, as well as Edwin's company, Murray Co., and also David dies and then the Mimic. I have a video going over that story, focusing on its themes primarily in a literary sense. But right off the bat, when we start this game, those stories are not canon. This isn't even an example of a slight adjustment or an adaptation. This is full-blown, none of that matters, none of that happened, we can't use that at all. As I played it, and as I discussed it with people after, I had to keep reminding myself that I couldn't use imagery, themes, and concepts from the books because the game is so different that the books can't possibly apply. Now, if you want to hear what I have to say about the books, I'll link that video below. But it, unfortunately, is not going to be as helpful as I hoped it would be when I made that video. Let's actually begin talking about the game. It starts off with our protagonist, Arnold, driving down the road. The year is 1979, and we're getting off a 36-hour shift for Fazbear Entertainment as a technician. A character called Dispatch reaches out to us over our car radio and gives us important information. Because we're the closest technician in the area, we're being assigned to go to Murray's Costume Manor to retrieve Fazbear property. Dispatch tells us that their motion detectors indicate something is moving around in there erratically. We're sent inside with a data diver, which should help us interface with the technology and the doors for some reason, and we're supposed to go inside and receive more instructions. After wandering through some junk around back, we enter into an animatronic welcome show that calls to mind the Country Bear Jamboree or It's a Small World. At the end of the show, it all breaks down. That's the tone of the game. This is supposed to be something fun, whimsical, and for kids, but it's broken and has fallen into disrepair. We find our way to the office and have to turn on the power with a generator. Dispatch, now contacting us through a radio intercom, tells us that people at Fazbear were betting on us surviving up to this point. We also learn about the Mimic endoskeleton, which has developed homicidal tendencies. The purpose of the endo was to fit into any costume and take on the persona of whatever character it occupied. We're told we have to turn the power on by fixing pipes to send what looks to be lava, some orange goo, through generators or something. In that room is a costume with a decomposing body inside. Clearly a Fazbear employee sent here to do exactly what we're doing. But he's dead and stuffed inside of a suit, that's weird. Now that the power is back on, we're told that Fazbear is after the schematic for the Mimic endoskeleton. They're not after the robot itself, which is homicidal, but the blueprints so that they can make their own non-homicidal version. To find that, we'll have to sneak through the building, upgrade our data diver to get more permissions to open more doors, and turn on the power in typical Metroidvania style. Dispatch tells us that if we get the Fazbear schematic, they'll find a way to disable the Mimic so that we can escape with our lives. Also, we should then take the deactivated endoskeleton home with us. And so the adventure begins. We find our way to a room with a robot called the digityper, who is typing messages and then immediately shredding them. This is a joke. This is funny. It's funny because this is what corporate work feels like. You do something and then it gets left behind. What was the point of the busy work at all? I wonder if doing work and then it immediately getting shredded will have any bearing on Arnold's story. Yes, it does. That's the point of the game. We'll see at the end that everything that Arnold does for good doesn't matter. But it's also commentary on replacing people with robots. This machine is programmed to type and also shred. It doesn't understand that typing and then immediately shredding defeats the purpose of typing. It understands each task on a technical, individual level, but it can't understand the purpose of either one, and thus it does something that no human would do, because humans can comprehend the difference between accomplishing something and just following instructions. We'll see as we go if these ideas are expanded on through the story. We passed a giant jack-in-the-box earlier, who wants to play. It now chases us into the room, wanting to play a deadly game of tag, I guess. She's mad that you go out of bounds, and it seems like she's actually like a child or a dog who doesn't know that they're playing too rough. She's the Lenny from Of Mice and Men of Clowns. She destroys the digityper. This will be a recurring motif. The building and its functions get destroyed as we go. The mimic, embodying different characters, is destroying all the functions of the factory. Jackie chases us through some back room, but closing doors and crawling through vents and riding elevators meant for factory and assembly workers allows us to evade her. Then she corners us in a vent. Her weight causes it to fall, and we collapse back into the main office. The mimic has once again destroyed something structural about the building, and despite being in a situation in which we definitely should have died, we escaped. Not by luck, but because of the physical reality of what the mimic is. Its weight and actions caused the vent to fall. It's not dumb luck, it never would have been able to successfully chase us through the vents. In the office, we note that it's 1 a.m. If we checked earlier, we would have noted it was midnight. Although it certainly was not midnight, maybe sunset when we were driving, meaning that we went from sunset to midnight from the time it took us to get from the parking lot to the office. We press a button to activate the intercom radio and the voice glitches. If you're paying attention, or if you've played FNAF Ruin, you can assume that this is now the Mimic speaking, mimicking Dispatch's voice. But Arnold doesn't recognize that. We're told by Dispatch Mimic that the Mimic was designed to keep Edwin's son entertained while Edwin worked. At some point, it was exposed to violence, and now copies that violent behavior. Dispatch now admits that there were previous teams sent in, and that they all died. All Arnold can do is hide from the thing. Direct conflict with the Mimic will result in loss of some limbs. This is interesting, and we will circle back here later. Dispatch tells us to go get him, Tiger. No secondary meanings there. Arnold, the technician, has to repair an elevator to proceed. Instructions are given to him on a cassette by Fiona, the wife of Edwin Murray, who also worked at the factory. This is an interesting role reversal for typical depictions of automation in the workplace. The onward drive of technology typically manifests as humans telling robots what to do, as in, we have programmers making robots do the manual labor. But in this scenario, a robot is telling the human how to do the labor. While Arnold isn't a machine, it'll be interesting to see from this point onward in his arc if he passes through any sort of situations that would allow for commentary on the relationship between human work and automation. After fixing the elevator, Arnold ends up in a theater of sorts, for showrooms with possible attractions that Edwin customers can purchase. Edwin customers can also rent them, I think. This is a show for things that people can buy, like the display item at a store. You're looking at something that is meant to sell you on buying it. If an electrician is called to fix a refrigerator, then he's fixing the thing that a family and a household needs to store their food. If he's fixing the demo refrigerator at a hardware store, he's fixing the thing that's used to sell people on the thing that he would then otherwise spend most of his time fixing. It's a weird secondary aspect of his job. This refrigerator will never store food for a family, and yet it still needs to be capable to, in order to sell refrigerators to families. Likewise, these carnival games will not be played by the public. They'll be played by the owners of carnivals to see if they're fun enough to then lease or buy, so that the public can play them. The idea of a technician having to play carnival games as part of his job is pretty funny, but the idea of a technician having to play carnival games that aren't even real carnival games and are just demo carnival games for people to buy to then actually have them be real is completely absurd. The same way that the digityper typing something and then immediately shredding it is absurd because you're doing work to produce nothing. You're doing the work for the sake of the work. Arnold the technician having to play a carnival game that only exists to be a demo in order to proceed to do his job to fix the mimic is equally as absurd. You're accomplishing nothing, but you still have to accomplish the nothing to continue to accomplish the something. Inside the showroom is a character called Big Top. He's kind of a conductor. Around him are mannequins. Because this is supposed to be a demonstration room for a fair or a carnival, the mannequins imitate customers, or things that customers would say. Once we exit this area, we actually go outside to see that it's snowing. Big Top chases us outside. It's very likely that the Mimic is inside of him, I guess, and he now crawls around kind of like a spider. The Mimic takes on the persona of whatever costume he's in, so it's possible that Big Top wants to make music, but also wants to give a good time to the mannequins, who he would see as customers. He chases you, but has a compulsion to set the mannequins down, as if making scenes in the room that you're in. He's staging a carnival. But if he sees or hears you, he will kill you, because of the Mimic's homicidal tendencies. Note that as he does this, he's also destroying parts of the building. Just like Jackie did. You're chased to a dead end where Big Top tries to grab you, but his weight brings everything tumbling down, and you both fall. You come to underneath the now depowered Big Top Man. It's unclear where the Mimic went, if he was ever inside him at all. We'll talk later about the possibility that the reason things in the game are trying to kill you is because of the agony, the evil, the curse of the factory. But either way, Big Top is powered off and you're alive. Dispatch's voice speaks to you, calling you lazy for falling unconscious. This is more a parody of corporations. Back in the security office, Dispatch tells you that he's dying to know what happened. The motion detectors and alerts were going off like crazy, but then it all stopped. This could be interpreted in a handful of ways, including wanting to know how Arnold stopped the unstoppable thing, so that his successes can be replicated, or possibly wanting to know what the Mimic is capable of. How did one tiny machine set off so many alarms? Or, possibly, Dispatch just wants to know if things went silent because the Mimic died. You've now been upgraded to an artist, who has to go through the workshop to get to the theater. In the workshop, we learn that the Mimic Endo was called M1. We also learn that we need to wear a director suit in order to properly do the demonstration for a play. In order to get through here, we need to do what the building thinks we should. It thinks that we're customers being given a demonstration, and so we have to play that role. And that role requires us putting on a mascot suit. This suit is a springlock suit, a design that Arnold will probably be familiar with as a Fazbear employee. The springlock suit has each of its pieces being worked on in the workshop, so you need to complete it and build the suit. Earlier, I said that Arnold is playing the role typically that a machine or robot or computer would play. Now he's physically building a robot body to inhabit. The Mimic wears suits too, creating a parallel arc between you, where you're becoming more of a robot as you go, taking the role of a robot worker, and the Mimic, where the Mimic is a robot, but, as we will learn, is actually just a child. In the springlock suit, the Mimic doesn't see us as human. We're in an area bathed in red light, standing beside the Mimic as his equal. For the first time, he's not threatening us, because Arnold has been lost under the skin of the robot he's appearing as. I think it's very fitting that this is the last room before we're confronted with the second layer of the Mimic's identity. We've learned how to defeat it, so now we need to be confronted with a greater threat. The next room is a ruined area with a giant hole in the floor. If you look closely inside, you can see a giant moon that fell through the ceiling and broke through many floors. It's this room where we meet the entity in the building for the first time. The entity is a white tiger mascot suit that appears and disappears before our eyes, like an apparition, a projection, a ghost. Go get 'em tiger, indeed. We've outsmarted the Mimic. In a gameplay sense, we found out how to make an unkillable force not aggressive, so now the white tiger is here as a step up in our threat level. It's seemingly otherworldly, and seemingly will be impossible to avoid should we find it elsewhere later. The giggles of a small child also echo through this entire room as we make our way through it, as do phrases like, "Stop sounding like him." The next room is a stage show. This is a demo to potential buyers about what it would be like to own one of these setups to make television or plays. You're in the role of a director, making choices and having machines do things. This is now the reverse of the situation we were in earlier. Now it's in the correct direction, the human telling the machines what to do. But to do it, you need to be in a robot suit. You still need to appear as a robot to do it. So you're a human acting as a machine in the role a human should play to machines that are acting like people. As the show goes on, the machines fall apart, causing damage to the building. These aren't live actors, they're machines, and when machines break down, all that torque and energy goes somewhere, and in this case it kills the entire audience. All of the mannequins are destroyed. The idea of robots putting on a play for robots is, again, absurd. And the idea of a technician being the director of a show put on by robots for robots is even more absurd. It's kind of like the AI internet apocalypse that people think is coming, where AI will create content that will be clicked on by bots, doing lots of work to achieve absolutely nothing. The room also falls apart, and we fall off the balcony and fall unconscious. That's a lot of falling. In fact, this is now the third time that we've fallen off of something and went unconscious. We wake up in a hospital. It is a real hospital. It's not a facsimile, but it's a hospital for robots. The nurse is a robot, and she fixes robots. She thinks you're a robot because you're in a robot suit, and so she's going to fix you. But fixing you would kill you because you're really human, and you don't want that to happen. This is now the second time that a robot has thought that you were also a robot. This is, of course, paralleling what we'll find later, which is that there's many characters in this story who are robots that people think are human. You quickly leave your suit and enter into another demonstration. Dolly, the nurse, and a recording of Edwin explain exactly what is going on here. You see, if you run into Dolly, she says error and then kills you. She's not supposed to be antagonistic, she's not the mimic, but there's something wrong with her. And we can figure out why. Recycling. In this story, recycling ruins the planet and kills almost everyone in the franchise. No, but like actually, Edwin says,
basically, we take trash and turn it into cash. But Edwin, how does it work, you may ask? Well, we collect various discarded materials. I'm talking about broken Midway games, costumes, computer and television parts, vacuum cleaners, toasters, and precious metals. Those useless things are then used to create new Midway games, costumes, and technologies for your family fun centers at a discounted price. And what we can't use is broken down into its basic components, which we then sell at a profit.
So let's say, for example, you live in a universe in which strong memories like agony and suffering imprint themselves on objects, and then you take a bunch of objects with those infections in them and reuse their parts for new devices, spreading that infection to basically every project you've ever made. Well, that wouldn't be good, would it? Edwin recycling old machinery and using it here literally spreads the infection of agony to all of his creations. That's why Dolly here kills you when you get close. She doesn't have the mimic inside of her wearing her like a costume. It's just that the entire building is covered in agony. The orange goo that's pumping through the entire building has the agony of every object they've ever recycled and formed into new material. It's literally the blood of the building. And she, as a doctor, is spreading the infection by implanting it into her patients. Unintentionally, of course. When you think of a hospital, you should think of a clean and sterile place, but you also... Why did I say sterile? Sterile. I mean, that's technically not wrong, but... When you think of a hospital, you should think of a clean, sterile place. But it's also really, really likely that you'll get sick if you visit one, because that's where all the sick people go. So in the game, you're in a place where the sick people go, where the curse spreads. This isn't the source of the agony, but this is where it spreads to new machines. It's the manor of reproduction. Arnold escapes the nurse, only for the mimic to arrive and then start to wear the costume anyway. To escape this area, Arnold has to throw recycling cubes into disposal chutes until they're full, and then flush them all at once. This is, of course, the process that leads to the spread of the infection. Arnold has to aid in the thing that he's fighting in order to escape and survive. He manages to flush the mimic nurse away, only for it to come bursting out, damaged by the molten metal. I assume that's what this is. Again, I don't really know. It starts to give chase again, this time cornering us in an elevator, which we rig to crush it against the ceiling. We escape into a room with roller coaster carts. This technology will show up later, which is why I assume it's here, to establish that they're made within the factory. Returning to the security office, dispatch tells us we can now go into the office area. To get there, we have to go through a warehouse, which is the stomping grounds of Chica. To the audience, this is the first recognizable character in the game. It's unknown if Arnold would be familiar with Chica as a character. We know that by 1983, Fazbear Entertainment will own Chica, but as of right now, she has her own restaurant chain called Chica's Party World. Arnold, as an employee of Fazbear, might also help out that chain of restaurants, or he might see them as competition. Either way, this isn't just a robot slapping a random costume on. This is a character that Arnold knows coming to life. In gameplay, you have to turn the power on by doing these puzzles ripped straight out of BioShock, which is another game about a world crumbling around a capitalistic endeavor, which I'm sure is not a comparison lost on Steelwool. In BioShock, the minigame is about moving pipes to let water flow, and in this game, it's to let the orange goo flow to return power to the area. Despite the fact that the world is falling apart around us, we don't really have any love for the environment that we're walking through. We're only fixing the pipes to accomplish our own goals. Meanwhile, the monster that's chasing us, who lives here, continues to destroy the facility. As we progress, to make the game harder, panels are removed from this pipe-fixing minigame, making you go out of your way to find more. As we progress, things are more broken, and thus we have to do more work to get them back online. We're basically patching a sinking boat with duct tape just long enough to get to shore. Turning the power on is doing something else, but we don't know that yet. We're just doing it for our own benefit. The next room is full of parade floats, which can be moved and customized for parades. Because of the broken state of the building, Arnold has to use the machinery and products in this room to move forward. He's gone from taking the role of a purchaser of Edwin's goods to the role of a worker. He's no longer in the role of supporting a company by experiencing it in a weird way. He's now in the role of using the products themselves. Putting together a costume to wear for your safety is one thing. Moving these using the levers of the factory itself, turning on the power to make things work, flushing the recycling chute to pump blood through the building. Are we bringing this place back to life? Continuing on, we reach some office cubicles, left abandoned, surrounded by Mr. Cupcake. In the game, these act as proximity alarms, but I'm not sure what function they would have in a real product sense. If you touch them, they kill you. If you go near them, they start screaming and alert Chica. When the mimic inhabits Chica's body, he's taking on her persona. So maybe seeing her cupcake and giving them a cute little spot to sit and chill is part of Chica's personality. But Arnold doesn't ever use this to his advantage. He just has to sneak by them. Because these machines have eyes, it seems like they're acting as the eyes for the entire building, which, again, we believe to be infected by all of the evil that's happened here. Progressing through this section, you find a conference room with rotting food. We'll talk about this later. We hear a voice memo telling the employees that there's a suggestion box for taking ideas, and that none of those ideas are bad. It then immediately corrects this, saying that they are no longer taking suggestions, because some ideas are bad. This functions, once again, as commentary, a joke on corporate culture. But I also see it as environmental storytelling. Someone had a very, very bad idea. What was the fallout of this? Are we going to see it? Arnold must be thinking that the mimic was a very bad idea, but it's just as likely that he's thinking as he continues into the next room that the bad idea is moving forward at all. Once there, he unlocks the final upgrade and he can open every door. We head to Edwin's office and find it a stuffy place with leather couches, endless bookshelves about management, a drawing table with a blueprint and a computer. There's cobwebs everywhere, a chess game in mid-match, and stylistically clashing with the room, we see a child's drawing taped to the wall, and some blocks. We were told that Edwin built the mimic for his kid. We know that Edwin Murray disappeared, but what happened to that kid? We've seen bodies all around the building. Are we going to stumble onto his? Well, it doesn't matter. We have to continue on to get the schematics. We log into Edwin's computer and see that the company is in shambles. We activate a secret mechanism that slides the bookshelf aside like in an old movie. Edwin obviously had a flair for secrecy, and now it's time to wonder if all of this is leading somewhere. Was Edwin a serious person, or is he more like a Scooby-Doo villain? He certainly was one for theatrics, but if this entire experience has been one thing pretending to be another, and we now have an example of a door pretending to be a bookshelf, is it possible that Edwin is also one thing pretending to be another? What else might we, Arnold, be wrong about? How much of this experience has really been what it looks like on the surface? After getting the schematics from Edwin's secret observation room, we get chased by the mimic into an underground area that's almost entirely dark, Thankfully, one of Edwin's products is a bright toy that we can take with us to light our way. Then, everything we thought we knew goes out the window. We thought we saw something earlier, but it could have been a trick of the light or an aftermath of the multiple times that we've passed unconscious, but we're now confronted with an actual ghostly entity. The underground section here is referred to as tunnels. There's some sort of project going on here, and the lights flicker in unnatural ways. The white tiger suit seemingly vanishes into thin air. Arnold also experiences flashes before his eyes, probably denoting mental projection of the thing that's stalking him. We use the glowing light of one of Edwin's toys, which is a baby star, to find our way to the exit and escape. Returning to the security office one last time, dispatch tells us that we made it the furthest. If it wasn't already clear to Arnold, it should be clear to us that Fazbear has been sending people here to die to get these schematics. Dispatch says he can't believe it was you who succeeded. With that said, Arnold is of course wrong about who he's been speaking to. This is where the player gets the choice of two endings. You can turn your data diver over with the schematics, or refuse to. The canon ending is clearly refusing to, but there is some information we can glean by going the non-canon route. In the ending where you turn the data diver over, you leave. In your van, dispatch calls you, saying he's been trying to reach you all night. You realize the voice on the intercom was not dispatch the entire time, which does you very little good because the mimic attacks you from the back seat and you die. That means that throughout this whole game, while the player may have suspected dispatch as being the mimic, Arnold never did. In the canonical ending, Arnold has been screwed over by Fazbear from the start. They sent him here as a guinea pig, but more than that, he's seen this factory. He's seen this weird facade that's breaking down, that he had to patch to get here to this point. He's also seen the mimic, and he knows how deadly it is. He doesn't want to give it to Fazbear. He is going to escape. He activates parachute.exe, a parachute of course being a safe way down to the ground from danger, and he runs away, heading further into the bowels of the building, thinking it's going to lead him to safety. Dispatch continues to mock him as he makes his way through the tunnels, listing the ways that the mimic will kill you and put you in a suit, asking who Arnold is deep inside. This whole game we've been taken advantage of by different forces controlling our fates, from Dispatch and Fazbear to whoever is speaking now. We started as Arnold, but as the game went on, we worked in different areas throughout Murray's factory, taking on different roles to get through the obstacles. Now, our identity is being questioned. The voice asks us if we're a bee, a worker bee, or a jester because the game has been a comedy of errors. A bunny, scared, looking for a hole to hide. An obedient dog. Would you kindly get the schematics? While these don't map to the actions that we've taken tonight, the implication is that in death, we will be fully transformed into a Murray creation. We've made choices to take on the role of Murray employees, but now, in death, that choice will be taken away from us and will be fully transformed into a Murray creation. We won't be able to reject it anymore. After the speech, Arnold emerges into, not the belly of Murray's costume manor, I mean technically it is the belly of Murray's costume manor, but not into something associated with Murray, but instead into a prototype of a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. The two forces we've been dealing with the entire game, Fazbear and Murray's, Dispatch and the Mimic, while not literally being the same, are basically the same. You're actually doing your menial job for Fazbear, but you're pretending to do a job for Murray to get through. You've become a weird offspring of both. We walk past a large Freddy head. We wind up in a prototype for a Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria location, known to the player to be a copy of the FNAF 1 location. Inside, we find prototype endoskeletons and springlock suits. We have to quickly hide inside them as the Mimic digs itself out of a pile of animatronic parts. It's now an amalgamation of Freddy's core characters, Freddy, Foxy, Chica, and Bonnie. It's as if it can't choose one form to scare you with, but it still knows what you are. You're a Fazbear employee, and it takes on the persona of whatever costume it's in. Right now, it's the essence of Fazbear Entertainment. It's the animatronic band. And the same way that Fazbear sent you to your death, this essence of Fazbear is coming to kill you. If you hide inside of the springlock suits, you can make your way toward a door that should lead to safety. The voice speaking to you, neither Dispatch nor Mimic, is telling you not to come any closer. It's going to lock the door so you can't get in. But like an echo into the future, keeping the doors closed requires power. so you move animatronics like chess pieces toward the door, wearing down the power of whoever is inside, so you can finally see who's been giving you these instructions all night. When you finally do, you come face to face with a large blinking computer. F10-N4 is printed on the side. You know what that means. Edwin Murray's wife, Fiona, died many years ago. This computer that Edwin built thinks it's her. Its name is Fiona. She tells you what her plan is. Edwin used to come here, but he's staying up in his house on the hill. He's been there for a long time. Fiona, we'll call her F10, wants him to repair M2, that's the mimic chasing you, or else M2 will chase you forever. This gives us insight into what happened in the other ending. M2 was never fixed, so it pursued you to your van. F10 tells us to go find Edwin, to tell him that she still loves him and that he must fix M2. Fiona's story has mirrored our own. We played roles and became more machine-like as we came down into the belly of the manor. Fiona also played roles to get us to come down here. And she wants, not for us to become more like robots, but for her son to become more like a human. M2, the thing chasing us, is a failed recreation of Edwin and Fiona's dead child, David. Fiona has been in control of our fate since we stepped into the building. M2, Robot David, has been chasing us the entire game, as we race unknowingly toward David's humanity, locked away in some schematic that only Edwin can repair. Edwin is the one who caused this, but he's also the only one who can help us. But will he? He didn't seem to care about his employees, who he let get poached out from under him, who he treated terribly. He left Fiona down here for who knows how long. Does Edwin care about anything? We head toward the house. We take an underground roller coaster ride because apparently Edwin also invented Minecraft, and we're fed more information about Edwin and his company. The Fazbear project is over budget and behind schedule. They're in a lot of debt. They have no employees. But the orange goo is still flowing, and Mr. Helpful says that everything is going great. The mimic is somehow in the house ahead of us. I don't know. Edwin's home still has the lights on, probably because the goo is providing energy. Animatronic parts are scattered on tables and work areas. Chains and meat hooks are dangling from the doorways for some reason. There's a unicorn head mounted above the fireplace. There was one in Edwin's office too, and actually a prototype, or an endoskeleton, or just one being repaired in the living room. This house seems pretty typical for this era, with green wallpaper and beige furniture. The idea that Edwin would live in this kind of boring house given all of his whimsical inventions is kind of a stretch. But the unicorn head, that is very Edwin. The rest of the house, not so much. It's possible to find an email that clarifies that this is Edwin's parents' house, meaning, just like the business, Edwin inherited it, and probably tried to innovate with his ideas but kept the structure the same. It's a nice, classy manor, but it's filled with workstations, cardboard boxes, and mascot suits, which cannot be what his parents would have wanted. The house is not Edwin's style, but it's also not what his parents would have wanted. Trying to do two things, it accomplishes nothing. It's a product Edwin wanted to make to sell, but it's also his son, who kept him from his work. I would say that both are a failure. Edwin's life is defined by failure. But we aren't Edwin, we're Arnold. And we've been taken advantage by our company to deal with his failures, because this game is ultimately about being taken advantage of. We sneak through the house and find a locked door. The code has something to do with David's birthday. After looting Edwin's precious memories, we're forced to watch film reels, and see Edwin scaring David on his first birthday with a small puppet that Fiona made. Edwin coming up with a business idea and missing David's second birthday. Edwin doing a poor job comforting David after Fiona's death, telling him to hurry up and open his presents because he has to get back to work. Edwin gifting David a playground, with a suspicious lingering shot of a ball and Fiona's robot voice in the background. And Edwin getting robot Fiona to go and fetch David from his playground to come inside for a party. We saw this room earlier. The party that never happened. The rotting food. The day David died. Edwin never had time for his family, and when Fiona died, David became more of a burden. But then the mimic became a new Fiona, and now everything's perfect. Edwin threw David a great party. Anyway, we determined that, in the present, these reels and memories mean a lot to Edwin. He made it the passcode for his door. Edwin's story, on the face of it as far as Arnold cares, is clearly about regret. Arnold makes his way into a room with a model of Murray's costume manor. Maybe it used to look like this, or maybe Edwin wanted it to look like this one day. Either way, we see that Edwin constructed a perfect vision of what he wanted, but that's not how things played out in real life. Edwin's office is destroyed. A tape player on the wall tells us there was a minor detonation and a fire. Someone put bombs in his belongings. M2 now mimics Edwin. Edwin is injured, the explosion hurt him. He asks for help, but M2 mimics back what Edwin said to David.
Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play?
Edwin's legs don't work, maybe because he attacked the mimic's legs, and so then the mimic mimicked this and attacked his. Maybe that's why M2 rips off people's limbs. It's possible that the mimic is possessed by David, or it's also possible that he is sort of like Edwin's second son. He's a dark reflection of David. But either way, he's now mimicking Edwin. He finishes his own endoskeleton, putting his legs on, and is now playing the persona of Edwin. But he's also being murderous. Arnold turns on Edwin's computer to access the surveillance room. Another bookshelf slides aside, revealing a room of mostly broken monitors and a computer. You switch it on and activate a program called cradle.exe, labeled Mechanical X-Form Experimental Storage, or MXIS. This is the program Fiona wanted Edwin to finish. Maybe he did just before he died. We activate it, but the mimic keeps chasing us, now not wearing any costumes whatsoever. To escape, we have to turn on a generator. This is the way that we've been restoring power throughout the entire facility, but this time it starts a fire. The fire spreads to the whole house as we run away. Fiona's voice speaks to the elevator as we escape, thinking that the message is going to Edwin. It's possible that this MXIS thing we just activated woke her up from her standby mode. She tells Edwin all she wants for him to do is to fix M2, meaning that us activating Cradle did not do that. There's still some other step involved that we don't know about. Fiona then returns to standby mode. Arnold, who is just told that he has to do this so that M2 would stop hunting him, is probably upset that Fiona just said that Edwin still has to do more things to get it to stop. Also, Edwin probably died, so now Arnold is screwed. He tries to escape the burning house, the tunnel, the factory. Small robots chase him, looking like household appliances. It seems like everything that has the Mimic AI in it is trying to stop him. The Mimic drops down onto a catwalk, but, as we've seen many times, is too heavy, and falls into the goop. We escape in our van, with the little robots chasing us, trying to get into the car. The Mimic somehow catches up, crashes the van, the one that we were so worried that Fazbear would repossess, and takes the tape we have with our data on it, probably including the schematics that Fiona needs. It leaves us alive, but in a burning car post-crash. It walks away. This is the end of Arnold's story. At the end, the only thing he was needed for was company secrets and schematics. He was used. He burned down the place he had been patching up, and then he too was burned. So what does this all mean? What is Arnold's story about? Arnold's story is being the pawn of a massive company, or maybe a knight if the chess piece in his van is symbolism, but being a piece in this massive company's plot. But it's not just a massive faceless corporation, it's a long battle between the faces of the corporations, William and Henry, and Edwin. There are many logs you can find throughout the game, showing that William was poaching Edwin's employees and bought the land his factory is on. Henry also rejected some of Edwin's designs. At the end, the Fazbear Project was the only one Edwin had left. Your bosses did this to Edwin, and your bosses are making you do this. You turned the power back on in the factory, only to also burn it down. You activated Cradle to stop the Mimic from chasing you, only for it to chase you anyway. You got the schematics for Fazbear, only for them to be ripped away at the last moment. You took this task to keep your van, only for your van to crash. And in the end, no one cares that you ever did anything. You are thankless. You are worthless. You are forgotten by history. In the decades-long schemes of Henry, William, Edwin, and Fiona, you are just a cog in the machine. The moral of the story is not for Arnold, who likely dies right here. The moral of the story is for you, the player, which is why I've been using you and Arnold interchangeably. Edwin lost his family because he worked too hard. Arnold lost everything because he let a company control his life. Nothing either of these men ever did was appreciated or mattered. One of them worked for himself and owned his own company, and one of them is a low man on the totem pole being told what to do by the bosses who control his fate. The point isn't that menial jobs are bad. The point is to always put the things that actually matter first. No one will remember the long hours that you worked, but your son will remember you playing ball with him yourself. That's the point of the game. With that said, Scott Cawthon chose to release this game on Father's Day weekend. I don't know why. Scott, what are you doing?